Welcome to Above the Garage.
Hi, friends. Before we discuss the episode, I just wanted to quickly acknowledge that this episode is coming out on the 4th of July, Independence Day for those of us in America, but an Independence Day where we're reeling from a recent loss of independence. Many of our podcast members do not live in America, but I know they join the Americans in our group in fear for the direction of the United States and the future of our children. Recording these episodes has become much more somber in the past week, as we see so many exact parallels between pre-Gilead flashbacks in the show and our current events in America. So don't do what June did. Please wake up. Do everything you can to change the direction we're headed, because in addition to the Supreme Court ruling against women's choice, against the environment, for religion in schools, and for expanded gun rights, Clarence Thomas's Roe v. Wade opinion, literally in writing, suggested the Supreme Court revisit the rights to same-sex relationships, marriage, and even to contraception. Remember when we watched Luke sign a note allowing for June to get her birth control and how insane it seemed? It's not so insane anymore. So don't just dismiss the show as impossible, because it's not. It's becoming more and more possible every single day. Okay, on to Season 3, Episode 5 of The Handmaid's Tale, Unknown Caller. Let's do our round of introductions and dive in.
Hi, I'm Scarlett.
Hi, I'm Ginger.
Hi, I'm Marigold.
Hi, I'm Julia.
Hi, I'm Claudia.
And I'm Kate. Okay, so this episode opens with June's voiceover over shots of Luke and baby Holly. She says she's out, she's safe, she's with Luke. May he and his goodness bless us with miracles, for we are weary and weak of faith. And then there's a shot of a Gilead supermarket in like time-lapse mode with people rushing all around and unmoving June. And she says, maybe it's not a miracle. A miracle is beyond human powers. I did this. It's a dream. My baby is free. They could resent me. I wouldn't blame them. Instead of resentment, they offer grace. A victory for one is a victory for all. And then she starts talking about Luke. I want him here so badly. I want to be held and told my name. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Maybe. What about the rest of me? The night we made Hannah. If I thought I would never touch him again, never have him, I would die. But nobody dies from lack of sex. It's lack of love we die from. And I love that phrase because it's further proof that June lives for love. A lot of people think that she should end up alone, that she shouldn't be with anyone. She's this strong woman, which she totally is, but that's entirely ignoring what she's told us is important to her multiple times in both the show and the book, which is love. Romantic love is important to her, as well as that of her daughters and her friends.
Mm-hmm. I think this is only the second time that June has had a flashback of just her and Luke, because usually Hannah's involved in all of her fantasies or flashbacks or whatever you want to call them. The other one was in 1-5 where her and Luke first meet. And I think it's interesting because usually we've talked about how she's idealizing him and her thoughts of him. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this time she's actually realizing that, because she says, absence makes the heart grow fonder, maybe, which to me makes me think like she realizes she's thinking about him because Nick is gone now. Like she thinks, we don't know. She doesn't know if she's going to see him again. She doesn't have that love with her, because she mentioned the line too where she said she wants to be held and told her name, which as soon as I heard that, I thought of Nick, because that's what he does. Like he says her name, he holds her. Because I mean, in season 2, we really didn't get many Luke flashbacks in general, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. But
she was with Nick most of the time. So I feel like because he's gone and like she doesn't have the house she was used to living in, not that the Waterfords was great, but like she was at least familiar there. She had Rita. So I just feel like she's lonely.
And she just saw Luke. I mean, I think that's why he's on her mind. She just saw him on the...
Yeah. Right. And he has the baby, which reminds her of Hannah. Yeah. I mean, she doesn't even have her kids now. Like she at least in season 2, she was pregnant. So like...
Well, I think she's even admitting to herself, though, that she's not sure if she feels as strongly about him when she says maybe. And, back then I would feel like this.
I also agree with you, Kay, because she just saw him on TV, and that maybe is kind of very important in her monologue. But when I was hearing it the first time, it kind of made me think of what she says in 108 when she goes back to Nick time and time again, and she wants to memorize him. It's kind of like a little parallel. They're not the same words, but it's kind of like she wants to remember Nick. She wants to memorize him so she can live on his image later. And she's trying to do the same thing with Luke right now, but she just saw him. And obviously, for me, I've always believed that what June was looking for besides love is to have that family with that father figure, because she didn't have that with her mom, Holly. So obviously all those things are gonna kind of awaken all these feelings that it's kind of obvious she's gonna have. She just saw Luke, kind of like when she realized that he was alive.
That's a good point, though, that the last time she thought that way, she would just found out Luke was alive. And now she just found out that Holly is with Luke, which she seemed a little bit shocked by.
I agree, Scarlett, too, between this and 1-8. Also because she's thinking of him and like kind of holding on to him or trying to hold on to him right before she kind of lets go of him in both episodes. Not fully, but she goes to Nick in that episode. She says, I shouldn't be here, but I come back time and again. And then in this one, she's about to send him a tape telling him that she's in love with somebody else. So before she does that both times, she has these similar thoughts about him, which makes sense.
It's like she has to process how she feels about him before she can like confirm how she feels about Nick.
Also, like you mentioned, Ginger, her memories are usually him and Hannah together. And in this flashback, it's the night they made Hannah. So Hannah is still a centerpiece to her memories with Luke. It's like it's tied together.
Yeah, I have like a more general note for the quote, like nobody dies of lack of sex. It's lack of love we die from. It's a direct quote from the book. And I really like when they incorporate direct quotes from the book here and there in the show.
Yeah, and I actually like how they do that in this episode too, with not the direct quote, but the use of the cassette tapes. I think in the book they find cassette tapes and that's her story.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool how it was kind of a nod to the book to have her communicate with him that way. And I also loved that whole twist on Lawrence and Eleanor. I thought it was really cute. So well done.
I loved the part where she's talking about miracles first, and then she recognizes that wasn't a miracle, but she did this. And then she goes further with the we. Just simple. We did this. So she acknowledges herself and possibly the Mayday Marthas or just Marthas. I don't know if they are all Mayday. Rita, of course, and of course Nick. And I love that she's having him there already before she digresses into the I want him here so badly. Because I really think what Ginger said is true, that Nick's departure probably is a big trigger for what she's thinking here too, not just the fact that she saw Luke.
Well, and that's interesting because like she doesn't see him. Nothing happens with Nick in between this monologue and her making that tape for Luke.
Yes.
So I think it's evident that he definitely is
always there,
relevant here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Off Matthew says that she's praying for Luke and his returning the baby. She says she knows June wouldn't have married a man capable of kidnapping, and June tells her, "Bite me," like it's the olden days, and I like that.
I love it.
She really is too much though to take Off Matthew.
Yeah.
Like she's had children here. There isn't a chance in hell that she believes this shit.
I love sassy June though.
This was a question that I wanted to ask you guys. Do you think that Of Matthew is just jealous of June and that's why she's saying this stuff to her?
Yeah.
I had the same question and I had the same answer as you. I think especially when we go like right to the end of this episode where June gets to know Of Matthew is pregnant again.
Yeah.
And that it's not a big deal for the commander because everybody's just thinking about Nicole and June. And so, yeah, I think she's probably speaking a lot from a place of jealousy, but maybe also because she was not happy about her fourth pregnancy, right? It's the fourth. Yeah, she already had 3 children. So I was thinking she's also like compartmentalizing a lot. Like it's her way of coping.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
She needs to remind herself that, oh yeah, I'm doing a good thing here. Yeah, I'm bringing babies into this world. Yeah, and everybody who is not doing this is doing the wrong thing, because if she would acknowledge that it's a bad thing that she's getting raped and that she's getting her kids taken away, then it would probably break her. And I think it's a coping mechanism also.
It's probably some jealousy too. Like June had a baby, got her out, and unfortunately that's not happening with anybody else's babies. So, I mean, people do that. Like you get jealous and then people get like, oh, like I'm better than you, just to make themselves feel better. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
But I also like why don't say anything? Like, why do you need to always? And it's not just this episode, but also the episode 4 where they are at the Putnam's house and they are in the kitchen with all the handmaids, and she's saying the same things that are totally unnecessary at that moment.
I think she's like trying to convince herself of things, like you said, like she's trying to like repress or compartmentalize, but yeah, she should really keep her thoughts to herself, because she was in episode 4, she was like, Aunt Lydia's just doing her best, and like they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And when they hit Janine, you know, she's like, that's what she gets, you know, she was really mean. But I think it's interesting, the jealousy, like I hadn't thought about it that way. When I first saw these episodes, it was kind of like the same thing as with Eden. Like we were just like, oh, shut the fuck up. Like, why is she so annoying? Why is she such a believer? And once obviously we see what happens throughout season 3 and the importance of her character, because her character is very important, just like Eden, we kind of, the audience, notice that she's just trying to survive. That's just, Janine has a way of surviving, you know, of Matthew has this weird way of surviving, but she's kind of also not betraying her friends or her own, but kind of in a way because of the way that she's talking, but she's just believing in what she was brainwashed with.
Janine has a similar coping mechanism, like in ways she accepts Gilead's teachings as a way to get by, whereas like Emily does not at all. She completely rejects it. And I love Janine, so I don't know what the differences there are.
But maybe of Matthew is compartmentalizing even with the handmaids, because okay, she's pregnant with her 4th baby, right? So she's already knows what it's like to have to keep giving these children away. So she's like, maybe she's trying to protect her feelings, so also not wanting to bond with handmaids, because that's not going to end well either. You know what I mean? Like there's no friendship is complicated, obviously. So like the more she makes connections and bonds with people, the more it's going to hurt when they're taken away.
So she goes the other direction. So she's bitchy.
Yeah. So maybe her way of dealing with it is just being snarky and being a believer. Because I would imagine at this point in the episode, she probably already knows she's pregnant.
Well, no, because I think that's what was hitting her so hard. I mean, personally, I think at the supermarket, that's why you suddenly see her for real, is because she's just learned that she's pregnant for the 4th time. That's my guess. That actually reminds me, I don't know if it was in the book or in the show, but I thought there was a limit. I thought you had 3 babies and then you got sent to handmaid retirement.
You get 3 tries, I thought.
To handmaid paradise.
Yes.
It's about the tries. If you don't get pregnant,
okay. There's no end if you're successful. There's only
until you're barren, probably. And you get to the colony.
Sweet. I mean, that makes sense. What was Gilead? So
has anybody else seen that they are still doing extensive searches and stuff like that? The helicopters are still flying around, and there is a car raid.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
The eyes were blocking the street when June and of Matthew walked through, and June said, "Bite me." They had a guy sitting at the ground, and his car is being searched, so they probably are still. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense, because they know already where Nicole is.
I want to know who helped.
Yeah.
Who helped? Yeah. They
also the Martha. I don't know if the Martha issue has already been resolved.
I think they're trying to represent that Gilead's not the like stable, secure place it was in season 1 or whatever. I think they're still off balance.
Yeah, probably.
So in Lawrence's house, June is rushing in to talk to the commander when she walks in on him, flirting with Eleanor, complimenting her hair, the old softie, and she pulls back until Eleanor sees her and leaves. And she's not really buying into his flirting.
Well, I think she was listening because she was just like fascinated, because she's not used to seeing like that. She's like, what is happening?
And then before June can ask Lawrence what she wants, he says, the answer is no, I can tell you want something. But she proceeds telling him she wants to know her husband is safe, to which Lawrence wittily responds he doesn't know if Luke wears a seatbelt or watches his blood pressure. And she points out that they know where he is now and that he has her daughter, and asks if they would try to hurt him. And Lawrence repeats they, and she tries another phrasing. Do you think he's in danger? And he says, we're all in danger, which is true. And June gives up and leaves.
Yeah, I wondered, he looks a bit uneasy when he starts to avoiding answering the question truthfully, because he's like ducking around and telling jokes and everything, because he knows that he's probably in danger too now.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
And he knows that Luke is in danger because he doesn't really know what they will do to get the baby back. And he doesn't really know how to proceed, how to tell her that bad news, right? I think he already starts to grow a little soft for her, and that's why he tips around the subject.
Yeah.
I think so too. And you see that later when he offers her the handkerchief. And he's also like just looking at
Yeah.
her a lot and with concern when the Waterfords are
Mhm.
there. So that's a new
Mhm.
thing he's trying.
I love the difference between Lawrence and Fred. You can tell that June's gonna start her manipulation game, but Lawrence is way too smart for that.
Yeah.
Fred was not.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah.
So I love to see the banter between Lawrence and June.
I like how
Yeah.
June also slipped it in there too when she said, "Are they gonna hurt him?" Meaning
Yes.
like she's not associating Lawrence with them,
Exactly.
which he picked up on.
Yeah.
Right. And he repeated, yeah.
Mhm.
It's like they're really subtly trying to like build their alliance towards each other. And I love that about them.
Yeah.
Me too. Then Rita is with Serena and she says it's such a blessing to have seen her and know that she's all right. And Serena says she's with a stranger. And Rita says, a stranger to you, implying June has good taste in men. And they do know that about her. But I think Serena is implying that she doesn't trust her taste in men, her husband. And they're in some sort of conference hall. And then Fred comes out of a room and invites Serena to join them. And he's clearly taking June's advice from the last episode to help heal his marriage and his household. But the music turns dark as she walks in, and there's a bunch of commanders around a circle table, and Fred goes so far as to pull out a chair at the table for her, and he interrupts the men speaking so that she can address them. And she says she wants to know about Luke. And we finally learn what Luke does. He used to work in an urban planning office, and now he does part-time construction and utility work and receives refugee aid. She asks if he's a man of faith, and Putnam, I think, immediately says, of course not. And Fred says he did baptize Hannah, but that's the extent that they can see of his religious activities. He gives Serena an update on Nicole's health. She's doing well, and she's growing a tooth. And then when the men leave, Fred says, I thought this was what you wanted. Our daughter's safe in Canada. Help me understand. And he's being nice and human and a good husband for the literal first time I've ever seen him in Gilead.
It was so weird, the whole episode. It was,
I know.
what is happening?
Yeah.
He's trying to manipulate her. That's all he's
Of course.
doing.
Yeah.
He's giving her power.
He's making it seem that he's giving her power, but he's not giving her shit.
But he
Yeah,
seems to care. He does seem to care beyond the power. I know he wants the power.
Slightly.
I know he needs to get her, but it seems genuine. And as we've all discussed, he's not that smart. So it's confusing to watch.
I think it's the first time he's really pulling it off, because when he does it with June, and I never had that feeling that he really pulled that off, that he's like trying really hard to manipulate her or faking feelings or something like that. But with Serena, he really got me fooled for a moment.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I thought. Notable.
I mean, yeah, but he needs to do that because, like, the place we left off in episode 4 is that she still does not want to be with him anymore, kind of.
Yeah.
Serena chose to not be with him, even though she does not have much of a choice either. But so the longer she's resenting him, the more face he's going to lose. He's started Fred's losing his power the more she's not with him.
yeah.
Right. So he needs to get in her good graces.
Yeah. So of course he will listen to what June said or advised him to give Serena this little breadcrumbs. Okay. She will come around.
Yeah. So like bringing her into a room full of men and making it seem like she has power. That's what she wants. And he knows that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did any of you guys think how did they access Nicole's medical records?
I was shocked by that.
I know. Okay, so do you think they hacked the system, or do you think Gilead and Canada have an agreement?
Yeah,
or...
they have spies. I think they have people there.
That might have been throwing them a bone. We can at least show them that she's healthy if they're going to back off.
They don't have an extradition treaty. That's why they keep asking politely in a threatening manner to get, baby Holly back.
Yeah.
Obviously the threat is to begin a war, and Canada doesn't want that, but already the relationships between Canada and Gilead were strained because of the letters, so they have to tread carefully because still Gilead is a lot more powerful than Canada, and Canada is not going to want to get in the middle of a war. So it's complicated, but they said it when they're coming in. You can see it you can hear it. It says are we going to send them another stern note?
Yeah.
And Putnam says, no, Commander, I'm saying that our options are limited without an extradition treaty.
So yeah, I think Calhoun didn't want to. He wants war, I guess. I think he's not
Yeah.
as afraid of war as the other guys,
Mhm.
and so Putnam is still holding him back, and he's like pushing for really going in there and threatening them fully, so they give either the baby back or they finally have the war. Because I think he's really hoping for that.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the older generation was more like Lawrence and trying to keep the peace.
I like the religious hypocrisy in this. You know, like they're all offended because apparently Luke is not a man of faith, but like they are, like Gilead
Yeah.
is
They
full of,
actually read the Bible and follow it.
very devout people, you know, that follow the word of Christ.
They don't go to church. We never see them go to church.
I think it's weird too, because like if you have been like within like Christian circles, like usually like certain groups think that they have like the one true faith, and like Hannah was baptized, so that means like that they were Catholic, and they don't baptize in Gilead, so I don't think they believe you know, a lot of the same theology as Catholicism. So I'm surprised that they even like recognize like, oh, that's a religious thing. Like,
right, that's valued. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also wondered, so June is told that Holly made it and she's safe. Serena, the rest of them knew, right? But they didn't know where she was until now.
No.
The Gilead
So
side.
nobody, they didn't know where she was until
the protest. Obviously, if you know, baby Holly wouldn't have been at that protest, if she wouldn't have been seen, they wouldn't know where baby Holly is. Obviously, it was not done on purpose, but it's just another small, maybe lapse of judgment, because again, since Luke has not been in Gilead, he doesn't know the extent. He doesn't know how far or how deep it goes. So all this happened just because she was there.
June's immediately afraid of what's going to happen. She sees them, and of course she's happy in the first moment.
For a second, yeah, you see the people you love,
that Nicole is with Luke and that they are fine. But soon after, she knows that, oh my shit, those people saw that video, not just me. Everybody knows now.
And she's panicking. Yeah.
It also sucks because, you know, obviously we've mentioned that he has a way of
compartmentalizing.
He has a way of doing that. He has a way of obviously handling his trauma. So it's the first time that he actually, you know, we actually see him go to a protest and this happens. Like, I felt really, really bad when I put that together. I'm like, poor guy.
Yeah.
Because again, you know, it's just a matter of like just the circumstances and the consequences. And obviously he doesn't have that knowledge. So it's just very, very shitty.
Yeah. Okay. So now Fred and Serena are meeting with June and Lawrence's house, and they tell her they'd like to arrange a visit with Nicole. And Serena promises it would just be one visit to say goodbye. Fred gives her his word that her husband and daughter will be protected. Serena gives hers as well. And June asks what they want her to do. She refuses for a bit. And then she asks, what is it you want me to do? And they said, we want you to call your husband. And she refuses. And Serena asks for a moment alone with June. And Lawrence is looking at June concerned the whole time, which I think was nice. And Serena, when they're alone, says, I know I can't be with her, but I just want to be something to her. And June says, no, again, that's not going to help. And it's not going to be what you think. Probably from her recent experiences with Hannah, she knows it's like hard on the child on top of drawing all of this out. I think June probably realizes Serena's going to get her way one way or another. And so she asks, if I do this, what do I get out of the situation? And Serena's like, what do you want? And June says, I want you to own me. And I wrote down, come on, June, you know this woman. Every time she tries out being good, she does a 180 immediately. If she wants to get something in exchange from her, she needs to ask for it right now.
But she's trying hard, though.
Which she does, though, later.
She's trying to change her.
Right. Well, and the tape, I think the tape is the favor. So she does.
I think June's also pissed off at her because June's been wanting to see Hannah since the very beginning. And Serena had the power to let her see her and dangled that in front of her throughout her whole pregnancy.
Yeah.
And here she is now. She wants to see Nicole, and Serena can just make a phone call and go see her and get on an airplane and go to Canada and see her. And June can't get that. Like she could never see Hannah on her own terms. Now she can't see Holly/Nicole on her own terms. So I think it just pisses her off even more that like Serena's backtracking because she still has the power in this situation and June doesn't.
Well, and it's really interesting you say that because she's asked Serena a billion times to help her see Hannah, and she's refused. And now here is the exact opposite situation.
I'm gonna defend June / Serena for a little bit. In the last episode, Serena tells June where Hannah's school is. Mm-hmm. So maybe because of that, June thought that Serena is, changing, that she can be trusted. She's giving me this information. So maybe that's why she didn't ask for something more specific from Serena.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, she's trying to maybe also convince herself, and June holds on to the goodness in people until the last minute. She hasn't learned yet how she needs to be in order to be able to fight the system. She'll notice at the end of the episode. And like you guys said, I really like that Serena says, please, I am begging you. And that is exactly what June told her when she asked to see Hannah. Yeah. I think it was in season 1, like, please, I'm begging you.
And Serena calls her June too. I think this is the first time she's ever called her by her real name.
I actually think that is the smarter move, to make Serena owe her something, because that's the longer game. Like that's something I mean, we know what the favor is now, but not specifically asking for something at this moment was way smarter than just.
Yeah, I agree. I think June wanted that in her pocket in case something, came along and she needed Serena for something.
I just don't think you can trust her. So personally, I would want something on the spot.
No, you can't, but she needs any power she can get, and that she doesn't have power. So that's what she can take from Serena. Like, you owe me.
Yeah, allies. Right. She needs allies.
That if she needs to cash something in, she could at least try.
Or you could ask to see Hannah or something to be arranged, or to go with her.
Yeah.
I don't know.
In the end, she was still going to have to do the call. So it was a bluff.
Right. Yeah. She got something.
Did you notice that they were talking about her husband? Your husband will be protected. And June is like, my husband? Like, this is the first time they acknowledged that she has a husband, because they said it's not legal that they are married. So they are basically not married anymore. And so suddenly they're all friendly and giving her that this is her husband.
Yeah.
So that was really shitty. Somehow.
Well, they said that word a lot too. I noticed that too. They kept saying husband, and I'm like, wow, you've never even acknowledged it. Now you're saying it over and over because you want her to say yes.
Something. Yeah. And then I want to talk a little bit more about Lawrence and June, because I loved that he was like waiting in front of the parlor for her. And as soon as she recognized who was waiting for her, she takes a beat. And they look at each other, and it's this understanding already. They have this unspoken thing too, like her and Nick a bit, but in a completely different way, of course. But they already had that kind of bond. It's a quick progress, and I like that. I love them together.
I know. I love their relationship.
Lawrence and June fan. So
it's true though. He is really good at reading her, just like Nick has always been good at reading her.
It's relieving that she has someone like that again.
Yes. And then June calls Luke, who is in the store, like struggling financially, like buying baby stuff's expensive. And he hears her voice. He's crying, and she's being very unemotional, telling him that Hannah's okay. She tells him she loves him, but she's trying to hold it together. And when he starts to say he's sorry, she says, don't be sorry. And still trying hard to hold it together. And he says, no, I should have tried harder to find you and Hannah. And he asks if she's all right. And she says, we don't have time. I need you to go to the airport and meet the Waterfords and bring Nicole. And it sounds crazy. So I totally get why he's completely in disbelief. But she tells him it's just this once to say goodbye. And she asks him, please. And Luke says, not him, just her. So not Fred, just Serena. And he says, okay. And then the call is disconnected even before he can hear her say, I love you again at the end. And that's when Lawrence walks over and kindly offers her a handkerchief, and she shakes her head. She's not going to let them see her break. She asks to be dismissed, and she goes up to her room, and I was expecting when she shut the door that she would break down then, but she does not.
Her strength in this call is amazing. And I like the parallel, because you see, obviously Luke's going to be emotional. It's the first time hearing her voice.
Right, with no warning. Yeah.
He's so desperate, trying to tell her all the things, and I'm sure he has to feel so guilty, and she is so controlled, so detached. Obviously she's doing this to protect herself, and because she's not going to give them she's not going to break, like you said, in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very powerful scene in her strength. Like you see throughout season 3 how she just keeps building up her strength. I really love that journey for her.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting how she kind of cut him off when he started talking about regrets, because that probably would have broken her,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love how when they start the call, June is sitting there like a boss. Like she's already got like her badass stance.
Yeah. I actually did look at the timestamps of this scene because at the beginning they said she had 2 minutes. And I was really curious how long that conversation lasted. And it was 2 minutes and 10 seconds. So very, very close to this 2-minute window. And I really, really like that, because sometimes if like in movies or shows, if people get like a certain time frame and you feel like they have a conversation for 5 minutes, even though they just had like 1 minute or something like this. And it always feels off for me. So I like that they actually paid attention to that the conversation lasts around that time.
Yeah, that's true.
So then Moira is asking Luke how June sounded, and he says like June, which I was surprised by because she had the same voice, but by no means did she sound like pre-Gilead June. She was just like faking, holding it together and stuff.
I had that same thought. I was completely thrown off. And when I was talking to Melissa last night, she was trying to help me figure out the episode. She's like, it's the first time he's heard her. So he wasn't, we noticed because we're seeing it from our TV or from a window, but he's just listening to her voice. So he doesn't even realize that she's being detached and cold. And he knew that they were listening because he asked.
Right.
So it's just the sound of her voice, not like her demeanor.
Right.
Yeah. I liked the friendship moments there because I'm really happy that Moira and Luke got each other. So the ease with her just going to him and sitting down and stroking his neck just in a friendship way is like, I'm happy they have each other.
Then Eleanor comes to check on June and says it must have been painful after all of that time. June said it didn't go quite as she'd imagined. And Eleanor said, well, what matters is your love came through. And she tells June how Joseph used to make mixtapes for her in college to show his love. And June asks if she ever listens to them anymore. And Eleanor basically says, no, I miss the man who made them. And June says there's a little bit of him left. And then she points out that Lawrence helped her and Emily, and that it's okay to take a sliver of someone and hold on to that, especially if it's all you have.
I like how we get to see just another wife that's not like Serena. Eleanor, obviously she has her mental health condition, but she is a kind woman. Obviously she does not believe in Gilead. She's not happy to be there, kind of like the wife with Emily in season 1. So it just shows that there are people there that are just stuck there for whatever reason. And they just don't agree, but they have to.
Right.
And that she also understands, like when she says to her, it must have been painful. I think Eleanor understands how hard the past is because she knows the man Lawrence used to be and how he's not anymore. So she knows, I think she can relate to June. Like she knows what her husband was, but obviously a lot of time has passed. So she knows that there's going to be different feelings there.
I think that June was also like kind of talking about Luke in a way, or that's how I interpreted it. Like, it's okay to hold on to a part of Luke. Like she remembers a small part of him.
But I think also as she's dealing with Serena, there's a little bit of that. Like she's very much trying to focus on one sliver of Serena and ignore the fact that she violently raped her and all these other things.
Yeah.
Because it's in her best interest to focus on this sliver.
I think we already see here that there is still something of the old Lawrence left.
Yeah.
Already here, and even more in the end of the episode. So.
Yeah. Then June's in the basement with the mixtapes, and they're adorable. The names like Shower Thoughts, Your Smile Sings to Me, Love Songs by Lovers, Travel Tunes, For When You Miss Me, Ocean Swimming Music. And June picks up one entitled My Magical Creature. And You Make Me Feel Like Dancing starts playing. And it's so unexpected from Commander Lawrence. It's adorable. Plus, it's music. I assume music is disallowed in Gilead and non-Lawrence homes.
No, it's for sure. I mean, we did hear some music in Fred's study, right? The classical music.
Right, but Scrabble was there too.
Yes, and we saw that Nick had a player,
or
whatever that was. But we never see him play it, so I don't know if he used it. But it seems like a black market thing.
Right.
And I love that she got to keep the cassettes because it seems like everything that was not non-Gilead conform, they had to throw it all out. And Lawrence kept all of the stuff.
Oh, no, it's sweet.
Yes.
Then we're zooming across the ocean into Serena's mom's house, where Serena's looking through childhood pictures of herself, and Rita brings her breakfast, tells her to eat it for the flight, and Serena shows her a necklace that she's giving Nicole and asks if she thinks she'll like it. And Rita risks her life to read, "For this child I prayed." But it's true. It's beautiful, and asks if she'll give Nicole a kiss from her. And then she pulls a package out of her pocket and tells Serena that it arrived last night. And Fred walks up right then, and Rita visibly tenses up. My only note is I love the ship window in Serena's room in her mom's house. It's so pretty. It's very cool.
Yeah, I loved how the Martha network still goes all the way down to the coast, it seems.
Yes.
I mean, they are fast, right? I mean, the flight was not that far away from when the call was, so respect.
Then they're at the airport, and Fred is apparently not going on the plane either. It's just Serena and Jeremiah the Guardian on this giant plane, which is terrible for the environment, by the way, Gilead. Maybe you didn't know. Flying giant empty planes. Quick note on that, like I read the Meta Witch article. They have really amazing articles. And they mentioned that there are a lot of like giant rooms with like one person in it, or like cavernous spaces. Like Luke on the bridge looks like a whale bone.
Yeah.
And this scene with the airplane, it's like super empty. It's just Serena inside the same kind of shape, like giant room. So
Yeah.
Notable, and also their articles are awesome. And then Tuella's on the other side watching her plane come in out the window. So like Fred's on the one side and watching her leave. Tuella's on the other side watching her come in. And then when Tuella greets her outside the plane, she dismisses the Guardian, who objects but has no power here. And Tuella tells her he's brought her a change of clothes so she can blend in, as Luke has requested a public meeting place. So she's walking into the airport, and she looks great. Yvonne is beautiful in anything, but I like seeing her in the normal clothes. Then Serena sees Nicole and Luke, and she tears up, and she asks for a minute to like watch them before Tuella introduces them. And when they do approach, Serena sticks her hand out to shake, and Luke just stares at it. He's super hostile. Tuella offers to stay, and Serena says that she'll leave that up to Luke, who says he can go. When Tuella leaves, Serena says, "God bless you," and Luke responds with, "Fuck you." And when she thanks him for making this hard choice, he clarifies that he did this for his wife. And she sits down and she keeps trying to keep it positive, but Luke's super hostile, understandably. And he asks about June. And when he wants the name of her new commander, Serena smiles and says, "Your wife is perfectly safe," which is insane to say to him. And he correctly reacts like, "That's a lie." And she tells him it's Joseph Lawrence. Luke asks what she wants out of this, and she says, "I just wanted to see my daughter." And when he says, "Not your daughter," she quickly points out, "Or yours. You understand this is not about biology." That's like, I just think that's really great writing, like all of that.
Yeah.
Perfectly playing off each other, completely true, completely like hitting everybody's buttons.
And I love that they both keep saying your wife. They're not saying her name.
Yeah.
Like, again, we're not like Serena never refers to Luke as her husband. Now they're just calling her his wife.
Yeah.
And she says every child has a right to their own story, even if that story is complicated. And Luke points out, "What was your husband's role in that story?" And she does not have the nerve to answer that question. She brings out the necklace that was a gift from her father and asks if he could give it to her. And Luke tells her that she's never going to be anything to Nicole, that she'll be taught how brave her mother was for getting her out of there. And Serena points out that she helped Serena. And all of a sudden he's like, "What?"
She helped June.
Yeah, she helped June. Yeah.
I protected June as well.
Yeah, protect your wife.
She switches her. She's not as calm and nice Serena. She turned into cunty Serena.
Yep.
That's why, like, the whole
manipulating cunty Serena. Yeah. The audacity to say that she protects June.
Right.
Yeah.
It feels like a threat.
Yeah.
Well, I was surprised it was enough to immediately make Luke do a 180. He takes the necklace, he hands her the baby, he takes her word for the fact that she protected June. That surprised me.
I mean, he doesn't know the truth. He doesn't know that she got physically and mentally abused by her as well.
Right.
He also knows that Serena's going to go back and June is still there. So that's why I took it as a threat. Remember that I protected your wife. Look, if you don't do what I say, I'm not going to protect her anymore. So I think that's why he was taken aback with the way that she said it.
Yeah.
So she holds Nicole. It's all loving. And on their way out, Tuella tells her that she doesn't have to change back into her Gilead clothes. His offer still stands. He even says treason and coconuts. And she refuses, says Gilead is her one home. When she shuts the door, she loses it, crying like I expected from June earlier in the episode. But Serena the breaks. And then she sees the package, or then she knocks the package out of her purse that June gave her for Luke. And on the plane, she looks in that bag again and she sees Tuella has given her a sat phone with a note that says, if you need me.
So they exchange the package and the phone?
Yeah, I guess.
I guess.
Well, the phone was in there. She didn't know that, I guess.
Throughout this whole scene, up to the end, I really believe that Serena was willing to let Nicole go, that her true intentions was just to say goodbye. And the only thing Serena wanted was for Holly to know about Serena. She would have been content with the idea that they would talk to Holly about her. So obviously when she gets off the plane, she's very emotional and there's Fred. And I have no idea why Serena just decided to, I mean, I do know why, but it fucking sucks that she just decided to fall into Fred again. Then I remember what her mother said, you're nothing without Fred in this world. But she had the opportunity to leave, just like June had the opportunity to leave, but June has a bigger reason to stay. Serena can just fucking leave. She doesn't have anything in Gilead. So it's mind-blowing to me that she decides to stay. And I think that when Luke says she'll never know about you, it also pushed her more into her change of thought.
Change of heart. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that too. Backing up to Luke and Serena talking, I had a couple observations. One of them is we actually kind of see Luke doing some like information searching here. Because like when he first sees her, he gives her some basic info on Holly. Like you could tell he didn't really want to, but then he immediately wants info on June and like he wants the name of her new house. So it's like, you know, this is one of the first times I guess we actually see him doing that. And then also I actually noticed a lot of parallels between this conversation and then the one that Luke and Nick had at the bar in season 2. Like they're small ones, but like when Luke and Nick first meet, like Luke is angry because Serena says that June is perfectly safe, which Nick said that too, or he said she's fine. And both times Luke said to them, it's a lie. And then in the bar conversation between Nick and Luke, you know, Nick is forced to say that Waterford is the father. And in this conversation, like Luke is asking Serena, you know, what's your husband's role in this? So in the bar, Luke had asked Nick to pass on the message of, you know, him still loving her and about Moira and everything. And I think he did that because he trusted Nick. But here, Serena asked Luke if he wants her to pass on a message to June, and he says no. And I think that's because obviously he can't trust Serena because Nick made it clear that June was his friend. He was like, Luke started to like hit him and he let him go and didn't fight back. Whereas here, Serena's not getting her way. She's not getting information on Nicole. Luke's not kind to her. So then she gets all like sinister and basically threatens like, I helped your wife. So I thought those parallels were really interesting.
Yeah.
There was another parallel I noticed too, to the opening, the voiceover that June has in the beginning, because she says a miracle is beyond human powers. And then she dismissed, Holly getting out as being a miracle and says she did this. But then here in this conversation, Serena is saying Nicole was her miracle and I let her go. I don't know. She's trying to take the credit, I guess, for letting her go because she wanted a better life for her, like June. But in reality, she doesn't because she wants to take her back.
Yeah, interesting. She wants a better life because she knows Gilead is a fucked up place.
Especially for girls.
Exactly.
So back at the Lawrences, June hears one of his mixtapes, and they're playing Cruel to Be Kind by Nick Lowe. First off, it's by a Nick. Second off, it's so fitting for Lawrence. Cruel to Be Kind in the Right Measure. And Eleanor's looking at Joseph in a new or old way, and they both start moving to the beat, and June smiles, seeing them connecting again, which is nice because earlier in the episode, she saw him trying to flirt with her, not as successfully, I think. She's good at matchmaking. She helped bring those two together, and Fred and Serena. Yay. And then Fred meets Serena on Merrimack and asks well, and Serena says she was perfect. And now it's over, and she hugs him, which is like weird for him. He's like, what? And then he says it doesn't have to be. And you kind of can get an idea of what's about to happen.
Can I just point something out that I just remembered about the plane thing earlier? The plane was empty, yes, when they went from Gilead to Canada. But I realized when they were flying back, there was a lot of stuff in there from Canada.
Oh, really?
And I just wondered, was that like a black market plane bringing black market stuff, or what was that?
That's interesting.
Or do they exchange stuff with Canada? Do they still trade with them? Because the last time they were there, they basically shut everything off.
Got kicked out, yeah.
Yeah.
Then Matthew and June are talking over some really disgusting jar things.
Yeah, I was having the same note.
So gross. Gilead's so gross. Gilead's specialty. And Matthew's not acting like herself, and she tells June that she's late. She's pregnant, so she's about to have her 4th baby. And for once, we see a real human side of her. She's not happy. She's feeling the way that you would feel about to have your 4th baby for baby kidnappers and rapists. And she even says she's glad Nicole is safe. Holly is safe. And her husband. Yes. But when she says, I really think everything's going to be okay, the eyes come for June, and the eerie music starts playing.
I wondered, because she said she hasn't told the commander yet that she's pregnant, and I'm like, don't the masters track the cycles and the wives, and wouldn't they note that she's like a few days late?
Right, yeah, apparently like when June was like 1 day late, they were on top of that.
And Calhoun is really high up, so he probably has even more than one master, right? And
maybe they already have kids.
Have one?
Yeah, so it's not super important anymore. I don't know.
Maybe they're not as obsessive as Serena is.
Yeah,
probably that could be this. Yeah.
Well, she said everybody's distracted by the whole Nicole thing, but I agree. The Marthas in her house would still be very focused on
what's happening there. Yeah.
Then we're with Luke, who has dug up a Walkman to listen to a cassette that June must have made in the basement of Lauren's house, and was the package that Serena brought. And the first song that she heard in the basement comes on, and he's completely baffled. You make me feel like dancing. Which is interesting because her memory of him earlier in the episode was of dancing. Then the music cuts off and June's talking. Luke, hi, this is so weird and I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. There are some things that I need to tell you that I couldn't before. I can't imagine what you thought when you met Nicole, but you were probably thinking a lot less about her journey across the border and a lot more about her journey into the world. It's not easy to tell you this because I am ashamed. I had to build a life here of a sort, and you should too. You deserve a life, a full life, Luke. You deserve love, and you'll always have mine, but I understand if you maybe need more than that. I need you to know that Nicole, she was born out of love. Her real name's Holly, and her father's a driver named Nick. You met him. He helped me to survive. I need to believe that you can forgive me. I'm not the woman you remember. She is part of me, but I'm doing what I need to survive. You should too. No, you have to. You have to for Hannah. This is all for her. I promise you I'm trying to get to her. I promise. I love you. I love you. And then he's crying. And that's a lot.
I love the sound effects, by the way, in this whole scene. Like the things they do with the sound, like in the beginning, like how there's a loud train and then it's all drowned out, like when he's ready to listen. And then the way they keep fading the sounds and like June's voice in and out.
It's so good. I have to note that the moment with the train horn is amazing. It's like the moment in season 2, episode 5, the wedding of Nick.
Oh yeah.
When they clap and suddenly the noise is completely gone.
When June says she's asking for forgiveness and says she's not the woman he remembers, and she's doing what she has to survive. There's sirens in the background. And then same thing when she says it's all for Hannah. So it's like it's punctuating like the danger that she's in.
Right. And it's overlaid with her in the van, right? In the Eyes van. And also her recording it. I just think the entire montage is amazing. I love it.
And like earlier, Luke had said like she sounded like June when they were on the phone and she didn't. But this time, like this really sounds like June here.
I mean, this scene is, I think, one of the few that still breaks me every time. Like the same thing happens when Emily crosses the border, but with
Mm-hmm.
this scene, it hits hard every time, and it's like my favorite Luke moment actually.
Yeah,
Because
mine
it's,
too. I had to
Yeah.
say no.
yeah,
Also, like OT is amazing in this scene.
Yeah.
I feel really, really sorry for him here, and
Mhm.
it's like she admits her love for Nick without diminishing her love for Luke, and I love that.
Mhm.
But it shows that she finally accepts that she isn't the old June anymore, and that she loves Nick, and that she accepts that, and that she knows that she had to do that to survive. But it's also it's real, and this moment is so real, and I think that is the thing what hurts the most.
I think the way they wrote it was really interesting because she was very smart to say, you know, you're probably thinking a lot less about her journey across the
Yeah,
border, obviously, because she wants to make sure that Luke knows that she's not Fred's.
yeah,
And I also, it always called my attention the way that she says, but I am ashamed because we know that June, as much as she loves Nick, she feels very guilty about it. Obviously, the way that her relationship started with Luke. And we saw that, I believe, in 203 or 204, when we have the flashback of Annie. That's something that she feels a lot of guilt for. So being in that position now is also going to affect her in the way that she sees what she's feeling and what she's doing to survive. And also, she's letting him go. You know, you always have my love, and she stops for a second. But I understand if you need more than that. And he lets her go. Usually we talk about how that's the biggest sacrifice you do for the people that you love. You let them go.
yeah,
So this whole thing was written beautifully. And she also makes it clear, you know, he helped me to survive, which is a line that I love because
yeah.
Nick is not there to save June. June's
Mhm.
going to save herself, but he helps her to be able to go through all of the things that she goes through. So I think it's very important that they pointed that out.
Yeah.
And the emotion in her voice when she says that too, like really gets me because every time June and talks, whether she's with Nick or talks about him, she always has such a peace about her. Like that's what they bring to each other is that peace. The only time we even really see June smile is when it has to do with like Nick or Holly. And that's the same thing with this. Like as soon as she starts talking about Nick and her feelings for him, she gets that like peaceful quality in her voice and she smiles when she's talking about him. Like even though she's in pain, like having to admit this to Luke, she's still smiling and she's soft and she still sounds happy.
I also had noticed for the first time this time that she protects Nick here too. I mean, she says that he's Holly's dad and they are in love and everything, but she doesn't tell Luke that he's a commander. She still says he's a driver
Mhm.
and doesn't reveal that he's a commander now because she thinks that he will resent him more if he hears that he's a commander than for him to be a driver. And I mean, he met him as a driver, so probably that's a part of it too. But I love that she's still protecting him, even though she doesn't know if she's ever going to see him again and if he survives.
Yeah. So a few of us from the podcast visited this bridge in Toronto, and the name of the bridge is Puente de Luz, which in Spanish means bridge of light. In Spanish, to give birth is dar a la luz, to give to the light. So just like the connection of like the light and like birth in the scene, like talking about Nicole's journey into the world, and it was like a journey of light. That's how I interpreted this scene, because then, you know, Luke will be able to tell Holly that she's not a product of rape, you know, like she's born out of this light, born out of this love. So I really love that scene and the name of the bridge too.
Oh my
I
god.
love that.
That's nice.
That's really cool.
That's sweet. And light is always associated with Nick and June in all their scenes, like that bright
Yes.
natural light. I like that.
Oh my god.
I also love too that June got to reveal Holly's paternity to Luke because Serena technically could have done that earlier
Yeah.
and she didn't. And I love that at least she got to be the one to tell him, like in the kindest way possible, I guess.
It's interesting that Nick got to tell him that she was pregnant and June got to tell him the other half of that.
Yeah, that's true.
It also weakens the claim that the Waterfords, because he knows that the paternity is not Fred's, so it's gonna be a little easier, I guess.
The only thing is like I wish that Luke could say that it's Nick's, because then they wouldn't have as much of like a bargaining chip with Nicole, but then that puts Nick's safety on the line too.
Mhm.
So
Then the Ivan opens to Aunt Lydia, and June asks what's going on, and Lydia calls her Nosy Nelly and refuses to tell her. She makes her undress, still telling her nothing, brings her boxes of new clothes in. And when she walks out, the lights and the cameras all on. And what is that? Like a wife's uniform in red? Different red uniform.
Mhm.
And you see Serena and Fred. She sees Serena and Fred sit on the couch in front of her, and she says, Serena, what did you do? And Lydia pushes her head down and tells her not to try any tricks. And then we're at Luke's, and he's like bonding with Holly better than we've ever seen.
He's listening to the tape again. Did you notice that?
He had headphones in,
Yes.
but was he listening
Yeah.
to the tape?
He's listening to the tape. I think he's like listening to it over and over.
It's setting in. I think he's relieved that she was not a product of rape and that June has found some kind of happiness.
Yeah.
I think he tries to make himself love that more than hate it, that she has found love, because
Right.
it basically saved her. So
Luke's really like loving on Holly now, and Moira rushes in and tells him he's got to turn on the TV, and then we see Fred and Serena making a plea to the world to return their daughter.
Which, by the way, I thought it was really funny that as soon as Moira turns on the TV and they're looking, Holly made this like really sad face, like she already could see the bullshit that was going on. That was really funny, like the timing of that.
They are asking Canada to return their daughter with a plea to the world, and the episode closes with Sunday Bloody Sunday, and it's all very fitting.
Did you notice that at the end, like as they're focusing on June's pissed off face, like Fred's voice gets like really distorted, and he sounds like a freaking devil. And he says, "We expect the government's full cooperation." So again, it's like a subtle threat.
That was not subtle anymore. I think it was a real threat, because afterwards he's saying, this is a family matter and you can help keeping it this way. He's like saying, if you don't send her back, then it's not a family matter anymore, then it's a war, right?
He's being politically correct, but the meaning is there.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's a wrap on our spoiler-free analysis of this episode. We are going to move into our deep dive. So if you're a new watcher, you probably want to drop off now. We'll take a couple seconds, and then we'll talk about any notes that are spoiler-full of this episode in the context of the show to date. Okay, who has notes?
I have one, just a simple one that's been a theme throughout this whole series. Going back to 403, when Lauren says that Gilead doesn't care about children, that it's all about window dressing, and they care about power. And it's really evident in this episode that Nicole is a pawn. They don't care about her coming back to Gilead. They want to use her as a bargaining chip with Canada.
Yeah.
Even the TV, the announcement, it's like very set up, cameras. It's just a show, just like the baby is just a show of power. You're right.
I'm also seeing something with 403, because the moment that Luke tries to apologize and she stops him immediately, and in 403, Nick tries to apologize and June stops him immediately. She doesn't want to hear it because it isn't necessary for her. And I think it ties to the absence makes the heart grow fonder, because for both men in both situations, she hasn't seen them for some time. I mean, with Luke, it's way longer than with Nick later, but still, she doesn't want any apologies. She understands all that stuff.
You can't waste time on that.
Exactly, she can't waste the time on that. I want to talk a little bit more about season 4 parallels, because she tells Luke here to move on. She has basically built herself a new life with another man. She loves another man. She admits that. And then she comes back. And Luke hasn't moved on, of course. I mean, it's debatable if people would have done that, if they get that message.
I feel like Moira would give him shit. And he's basically like a dad to Nicole. So, like, you know how it is having a young kid.
I think he didn't move on because he feels really guilty, and we see it in this episode. He's guilty because he didn't move fast enough.
I actually think it adds to the storyline that Luke didn't move on, because then
it does.
When June goes to Canada and she's a changed person, and rewatching this episode, it's just such a contrast to what the reality was between Luke and June in season 4 versus her memories. So
Exactly.
I think it added to the storyline that he still loved her.
Yeah, it did.
That's what I wanted to get into, because she comes back and she actually tries to be with him despite the fact that she loves somebody else and that she told him to move on, and that she realized everything about that, but she tries to push the love for Nick aside to reconcile with Luke because she feels she owes him that because he waited or whatever, I don't know. But then there's so much heartbreak between them, it just can't work. And as soon as Nick is dropped again, she just can't be with Luke anymore. And it's a fire that she can't even put out herself.
She says it in the tape conversation. I'm not the woman you remember.
Yes.
7 years have gone by. A lot of things, not just Nick, a lot of things have gone by. So obviously, once she gets to Canada, things are not the same. I mean, in this episode, she's longing for her husband, for the life that she had before. That's what people want. They want to go back to the life they had before, but that's not possible because you already lost that life. And obviously, she realized that in season 4, because we saw it, So she had that longing in this episode, and then we see her longing for Nick in 409.
Yeah.
Because she sees him, just like in this episode, she sees Luke. I mean, at first when I saw the episode, I was kind of taken aback, but then I started realizing, she had a life before. She missed that life, and she would have been content with that life if Gilead hadn't happened. Yeah. So it's an interesting contrast how she found what she was looking for in Luke, and then she found something completely different in the worst place, and what you guys are talking about, the feelings and masking her feelings, we see it in the phone call. Nick is criticized because he's stoic. He doesn't show emotion, even though he does. And that's something that June had to learn as well, especially in the phone conversation that we see, the first one.
Because showing emotion in Gilead can get you killed. So you have to compartmentalize. You have to wear that mask. You have to watch yourself, which is why Nick gets accused of not showing emotion, because he can't.
Yeah. All right, my only question was, do you guys think that if Luke had been nicer to Serena during their visit, that she would not have then switched courses and decided to try to get Nicole back?
No.
And I'm not faulting Luke's behavior, because every person on the planet would be that angry and react that way to their wife's kidnapper. So
she may not have changed her mind that night, but I think she would have changed her mind anyway. And Fred was kind of pushing for that, it felt like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was so emotionless over Holly this whole episode. He kept putting it up to Serena, what do you want? And it was all about her feelings, and he didn't. I just feel like Nicole is a pawn to him, just like the baby that him and his son that Serena is going to eventually have was also a pawn, a status symbol to him. And that's all these children are.
I agree with you in some part of that, except I think that he is convincing me during this episode that he cares a little about Serena. I know he just wants to get her back, but if Serena tells him, I want her to stay in Canada, he'll let her stay in Canada. Like you said, he doesn't feel strongly about the baby, that's for sure. But I do think he's actually maybe putting Serena above the commanders at the moment, because I think the commanders want to start a war. They want to use Nicole to do that.
I do think that she had her mind, and her heart set on letting her go as long as she would have known that Holly would have known about her, because she really did think that she did the right thing in letting her go. I mean, she knows she did the right thing. But then, I think the circumstances of what happens in the episode just pushed her to just decide to just go back to what she was.
So just the way Luke acted?
No, not just that. I think in general, she was in a weak point. She was desperate. She had seen the baby. She still longs for the baby. Obviously, Fred doesn't help. I still remember what her mother said, you're nothing without Fred. And Serena wants power. And as much as she wants to feel complete as a woman by being a mother, which is why she did all this, she also wants to have power. So it's that she has that, I guess, conflict within herself. And since we're talking about this, I had this small note June suggested to Fred to give her a little power in a past episode, and that totally backfires. I mean, that's not what June meant, you know. In this kind of game, she lost this hand, and Fred and Serena won, because she's still not good at playing the game. She'll obviously get a lot better by the end of season 3.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons she was really, really pissed at the end of the episode. Like she was, because it really came back biting her in the ass. Like the one nice thing she wanted to do, like pushing Fred to give Serena this little, telling Serena, okay, try again with him, and then they come back together, and it's kind of her fault.
Yeah.
And that's really sad. I think it's really, really sad.
When she made the call to Luke, like, I think she would have had to anyway, because they would have threatened her with terrible things like killing a handmaid or something. But she's the one that made the call and told Luke to please let her come, and that's the result. So that's that. Yeah, the ending face of June makes sense.
I have a little note, because Kate, you were complaining about the empty plane. And at the end of the season, the plane will be full with a lot of kids.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
The best cargo ever.
You're right. So that's great. I'm glad now we discussed that.
Is it the same one?
It looks like it.
It looks like it, yeah. Also, this net type of thingy. It looks very similar. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
I wouldn't say it's maybe not 100% the exact same, but the same type. And
I bet it's not coincidental that she flew there by herself on this giant.
It was strange for me that she was, because like it was funny because like also the one time they visited Canada, there was like a whole limousine and this private jet, and here she was some kind of cargo. She was not a person. She was like just a ship.
I think it was a secret. I don't think that the other commanders really knew about that, and I think it really maybe is the plane, because I remember now that it was a black market trade cargo plane, and it looked like they took black market stuff with them. And so Serena was black market stuff in that moment.
I just was looking through my notes, and I remember have that, not a parallel, but a thought of how Luke probably, we all know he feels guilty, but I kind of started thinking that he probably feels even more guilty and more inadequate because June is still in Gilead. She chose to stay in Gilead, risking her life to get Hannah, and he hasn't been able to do the same thing. So I'm pretty sure that those emotions that we see are just all of that bottled up inside him, and just maybe the way that they kind of come out, or he expresses themselves, you know, like at first he didn't want to bond with Holly, and that, I think it's episode 2. It was really hard for him to bond with Holly. And now after hearing the tape, it's quite different. But I started thinking like he really has to feel really bad, trying to put myself in his shoes, you know, especially after hearing June's voice and her being so controlled. This is what we have to do. I need you to do this for me. And obviously he doesn't have that control because he hasn't had her same experiences. So it's interesting to analyze from that point of view as well.
Also, the tape is very important in general because I think it's the only time she told somebody else that she loves Nick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and actually I kind of have something that goes along with that. One thing I noticed too, like when she's starting to admit to Luke about Nick, she hesitates before she says his name, which reminded me of when she's giving her testimony, and she hesitated before she said Nick's name, partially I think because of the emotions and partially because she doesn't want to like cause him any harm or danger.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me because whenever she rarely talks about Nick with anybody. And the one time I remember her talking about Nick without hesitating before saying her name was in 407 when she's telling Holly about your daddy, like your first daddy. But she says like, you know, daddy, like so easily, which I think is sweet because again, like she's a part of them. But at the same time, I think there's something so beautiful about the fact that he's so important to her that she can't bring herself to like talk about him to people who aren't going to understand. Because we saw in 409 when Luke brings up Nick, when he mentions that he's a commander, it's like it's a dig at him. Like, so he doesn't understand their dynamic. But and obviously in that episode, like it causes her a lot of pain. But I do think there's just that personal, like, he's special to me and I want to keep it that way.
I think it's that he's her happy place and they have something so beautiful and she doesn't want that to get destroyed. She wants to keep it.
Yeah.
So I have a small thing because Rita seems so happy that Nicole is in Canada now, and Serena is always lamenting about the fact that she's not there anymore, and Rita tries to remind her that this is a good thing and she really cared for that baby. You really feel it. And I only wrote down, I'm so happy that she gets to reunite with her at the end of the season or at the start of the next season. That's a beautiful thing. And I wished that a lot for her at that moment.
Yeah.
And she's so genuine in wanting Holly to be okay, where Serena's like, I do, but I still want her back.
Exactly.
I mean, well, it was, we assume, or we're pretty sure that it was Rita who started the plan to get her out in the first place. So
yes,
I'm still amazed that Rita is so openly happy that she's out in front of Serena. I mean, of course, Serena was in the plan, but still.
Yeah, I know. Keep it down a bit, because if anybody hears that,
everybody is just super down, like the poor kid that got kidnapped, and she's like, oh, she's in Canada, we made it.
It's just one more reason why I just keep laughing at how stupid Gilead is, because even like they're doing this like show at the end about, oh, this baby is kidnapped, and it's just like, you not realize that the baby belonged to June and she's kidnapped, but she's now with June's husband in Canada. Like, where are we not? I mean, maybe they're connecting the dots, but they're too like ignorant to care or selfish or whatever. But it just makes me laugh all the time how they just they don't follow like any of these very obvious breadcrumbs and like put everything together.
Yeah.
And then the If You Need Me phone from Tuello, we know it's going to be used later on. And I actually almost forgot at that point when she puts it on the table and slides it slowly to Fred. Like, we have someone who can help us. In the end of the season, before they defect to Canada to get to Holly.
I just thought about this though when you said this I need you phone. Now I feel, because I still really want to know how June got in contact with Nick and Lawrence in the season 4 finale. And now I'm like wondering, like, did Nick slip an I need you phone in June's pocket with the note, call me?
That's a good name for the phone between them,
I just have one more note. Gilead ruins a lot of things, but I really like how Gilead like changed Moira and Luke's relationship, because like in the flashbacks in season 4, like Moira wasn't like the hugest fan of Luke, but I feel like because of Gilead, because of their circumstances, they've really come together and they've had this familial kind of bond now, which I love, because they're parenting Holly now. And I'm just like, well, that's one good thing that has come out of the Gilead circumstances.
Yes, I love that. Okay, so we had a couple thoughts that were related to the Testaments, and that keeps happening lately, but we wanted to give people a chance to get off if you don't want to know what happens in the Testaments, because that's the sequel that Margaret Atwood wrote recently to The Handmaid's Tale, so it will tell you a little bit about what's going to happen in the distant future of this story. So if you want to leave now, thank you for listening, and come back on Thursday for our next episode analysis.
All right. I found it really interesting that we found out in episode 4 that the way that Gilead figured out where Holly was because, Luke took her to that protest. I believe it was pro-Chicago, which is the theme that they've been touching the commanders in season 3. And I find it interesting that that's how they find out. Like, obviously, if Luke hadn't taken baby Holly to the protest, they wouldn't have found out where she was or who she was with. So that choice escalates into this whole baby Holly thing. But it's interesting because in the testaments, actually, we know baby Holly is placed with other parents that are not Moore and Luke, and she is prohibited from going to protest because obviously she has to be hidden because Gilead is still looking for her. And Yulia, you have it a little bit more clear than me. What happens at her 16th birthday?
Yeah, sure. So at her 16th birthday, Nicole, that has now a different name, obviously, goes to a field trip with her school, which is a protest against Gilead. And her parents, or her, not her real parents, but her Mayday parents forbid it. But she went, and she's recorded and she's seen by Gilead. And so people then knew or recognized her somehow. I don't know how. Maybe they have like aging apps or something to make her look like a 16-year-old. I don't know. And then they figure out where she lives. And well, that sets the whole book kind of in motion. Also on like a little bit more on the testaments. When Luke says Nicole will know how brave her mother was for getting her here. That's her story. When he says that to Serena, I felt like, well, she will not know until she's way, way, way older, like what her real story is, which is sad.
That's the saddest part to me, is how many people love her so much, and she grows up unloved in the testaments. Her name's Daisy there, which also makes me question why the whole like sticking point for Margaret Atwood on Nicole was. But I think Julia helped me clear that up.
Victor of the People is the meaning of the name Nicholas or Nick or Nicole. Yeah.
Nicole, yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, because at the time I was like, why would she care such that they don't call her Holly if she's going to change her name to Daisy anyway? But your explanation made sense. It means something that's related. But on the topic of like not being parented by Moira and Luke, and we were talking about Rita earlier, I also like, it makes me really sad how much that Rita loves her. It's hard for me to imagine a scenario where she's got to go into hiding, and like Rita wouldn't be the one to volunteer to take her into hiding. So that's a bummer for me that the way the book is written, yeah, I feel like it can't be Rita either.
Please don't let it be Rita. Rita shouldn't take her.
Because you don't want her to die.
Yes. And I mean, they said that her mother didn't really love her, and she felt that. So
yeah, no, it can't be Rita for sure. But it's a bummer because they're reunited at the end of this season. She loved her and she helped her escape, and it would have been nice. Okay, I think that's a wrap on our analysis of season 3, episode 5. Come back on Thursday for our analysis of season 3, episode 6. Thanks for listening.
bye.